Hello and welcome to Green Shoots, a show where we get up close and personal with startup founders and have a heart to heart chat about the journey of their ventures from infancy to maturity. I'm Anisha Nair Thavan. On our show today, we have Mr. Siddharth Gupta, CEO, Mercer Metal. Metal is an online assessment platform providing solutions to track and measure technical, aptitude, and psychometric skills. Welcome to the show, Siddharth.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
So, Siddharth, tell us what made you come up with metal? What was that light bulb moment for you?
So, frankly, I was not the founding member of Metal. There were two very incisive, sharp IIT, IM graduates, Ketan Kapoor and Tanmay Singhal, who started Metal in the year 2009. And that year, both of them were working for top MNCs outside India. And both of them saw a lot of potential in coming back to India and starting something of their own. And the first pivot of Metal was actually a corporate training entity. So they came prepared with certain material and they wanted to train people better. So not only with corporate, but also with education entities, they went and trained a lot of people on it. And as they went about the first few months of Metal, they realized that most of the questions from the buyers was about how do we know the efficacy of what you're training us on, whether it really had an impact, yes or no. And that's where the seed for the current avatar of Metal got sown. And we pivoted from being a training company to a company which started assessing people on various skills. So we started with a very simple Google like interface, a very simple multiple choice question kind of a metal.com. And from there, we've, in the last 10 years, become one of the largest online assessment companies in the world. So that story has been a growth multifold, and from 2009 to 2018, we would have grown the company at least 50x, and then we got an exit from Mercer. So Mercer Worldwide saw interest and saw that Metal has a lot of potential outside India as well, and that's where they came in and gave a full exit to all the founders, including me. And from 2018 onwards, we are part of Mercer Global. So that's the story of Metal. This was actually one of the most celebrated B2B exits, even before the celebrated B2Cs that people talk about. We were talk of the town in 2018 when we got an exit for India. So it's primarily a business problem that got identified by very brilliant Indians. They wrote every line of code for Metal, and from then on, we created so much value that we had one of the top HR consulting company in the world in Mercer come to India and buy us out. So that's the beauty of innovation coming out of India, and that's why we are a great success story out of the India startup ecosystem.
No doubt, that is an amazing story. So, Siddharth, you started with corporate trainings, but now you do proctored exams for everyone, even for universities. So, can you
Yes.
tell us how has this journey been from corporate training to skill assessment
Yeah.
to proctored exams for a whole lot of people on a very wide scale?
So, Nisha, let me give you a small introduction to Metal. So Metal is akin to a test engine which is on the cloud. So you can envisage us as a test engine where you can upload multiple types of questions, which can have multiple types of answer types as well. So anybody sitting anywhere in the world can be given a test, and that person sitting at the convenience of his or her house can take that assessment. So this is the world of online assessment, and all the bells and whistles needed for this assessment to be effective, whether it is increasing the authenticity of the entire test taking experience. By authenticity, I mean through a web camera, we have an AI algorithm which has been trained to detect any unfair means being used for you to game the assessment. So through the web camera photographs as well as the video stream, which runs through an AI algorithm, we are able to detect in case any student or any candidate who's applying for a job is trying to switch himself with some other candidate, if he's got a mobile phone to game the answer, or he's got a book in his hand, or if he moves away from the screen to check on another screen the exam results. So it's not only about conducting an exam online, it's also about ensuring that the person who's supposed to take the test is taking the test in the most authentic way. So that's from a perspective of conducting an assessment online. But beyond that, instead of trying to create a hurdle in somebody getting his first job, or trying to just give a platform where you could conduct an exam, what we did was we started working very closely with corporates very early. And we started understanding from them what is the science behind every job role. So if you explore a job role, actually job role has three types of competency. For any job to be done well, you need three types of competency. So one is the basic personality that you come with. So for example, Anisha, your job, now if somebody is in your job, they need to have the confidence, they need to have the gravitas, they need to have the communication skill. So these are the domain competencies needed for you to anchor a show like the way you're doing. But beyond that, if you're doing say an economics based show like this, you might have to look at metal P&L and then crunch the number and see whether metal is growing at the right pace or not. So you need some cognition power for you to do this job really well. And beyond domain and cognition, you need a personality, which is being comfortable in meeting people you don't know, having a conversation with them. So these are all personality type or behavior types. So these three buckets of competency is what we built our expertise in. So if you take nearly 33 different industries, nearly 450 different job roles, Mercer Metal can today advise you on what job role requires what kind of competency. So we've got pre-built assessments ready for corporates. So if I am an Amazon or a Microsoft, or I am a Zydus, or I am an Accenture, I can actually come to Metal and say, okay, for this particular job role, I want to go hire somebody from either a campus, or I want to hire them with experience, and we could actually create an assessment for them, and the candidates can then take the assessment sitting wherever they are. So now suddenly, instead of taking an assessment from India in Bangalore, maybe you could have somebody apply from San Francisco and take the same assessment and apply for the job. So that's how we added value for our corporate customers. And similarly, the education story that you spoke about is more nascent, because pre-pandemic we were actually just catering to about 50 odd top private well run education entities in India. And we were conducting their entrance exams, we were conducting their end semester or mid semester exams. But suddenly, during the COVID time, when all the students got locked up in their houses, the professors got locked up in their houses, and admin also got locked up in their houses, suddenly beyond just learning, which was moving online, the need for assessment also moved online completely. So we had a huge pivot. From doing some 50 odd customers, we suddenly had 450 customers across 90 countries, where we were supporting various education entities in running their entrance exams, so that the entire academic year doesn't go waste. So many universities like Christ, Narsingh Monji, SP Jain, IIM Calcutta, IIM Bangalore, very, very prestigious names came to us and said, please help us conduct either an entrance exam or a semester exam, so that the lights can be on in the education institute while everybody is locked up in there. So this particular value proposition of Metal really is close to my heart, because frankly we didn't let the academic year for students go waste. And that is, I think, a bigger achievement than any numbers that you can hit. So this business has become fairly significant. It's become about 40% of our revenue now. We have some of very marquee names, for example, like Cambridge or INSEAD. These are names which are globally the best in their field, and they are all now our customers. So very, very excited about helping the education ecosystem, and we are investing quite a bit in innovations which will further help us add value to our customers.
So Siddharth, the education business has perhaps got a big fill-up because of the pandemic. From here on, what is the chance that we go back to old ways? For companies, do they go back to anything else, or yours is going to be the time-tested solution they're always going to rely on? Going ahead, how much growth can we bank on?
So I think both the customer segments, and I'll speak about each one of them separately. Uh, Regarding really the education ecosystem and automation of assessments there, this question gets asked to me almost every day, not only externally but internally at Mercer as well. That is this a COVID phenomena, or this is something more than that? And frankly, if you step away from the whole chaos of the pandemic, and if you start noticing trends, you will see that education was already on its way to moving online. And In no way I want to undermine the effectiveness of a face-to-face interaction that a student can have with his professor and the learning from there, and as well as sitting next to your peer and learning from them. But given the speed of our lives now, the distance doesn't matter anymore with the internet and online. um, Slowly lot of very good quality online syllabuses were coming, where very good professors were available for student. And suddenly, even if you're sitting in Bangalore, and you could tap into a top professor for one of the top colleges in the US or EU, and you could learn directly from them. So this particular pivot had already started, though at a slower rate. COVID just gave it a steroid shot. So suddenly, we had a huge amount of traffic move completely from online to offline. Now, again, for the education ecosystem, this was something that was always available. So, whether online platforms or whether online assessment capability as a technology was always available. But somewhere the education ecosystem was a bit of a laggard in adopting newer technology. Somewhere that belief that you need to bring all the students and all the education stakeholders into a real estate and then leave them there with face-to-face interaction, and that is the only way to educate. That as an assumption has kind of got questioned over the last 2 years. And I feel we might see a bit of tapering down in adoption of technology, and we might see a small blip maybe once the students come back. But the efficacy of whether this can be done online or not, and the value associated with what we are delivering, has got very well established. I would just give you an example. Now we have one of the top colleges in India, where more than 200 professors have invigilated their own exams. The 200 professors created their own question banks, uploaded it into the system. Then they conducted their entire exams for their subjects, and then post that on the platform itself. They evaluated the answer sheets and gave a report card out for students. So they have actually gone through a learning cycle during the last 2 years. And I think this is an irreversible cycle. And I'm sure that education is going to be quite a bit online. It would be, I feel, a hybrid of sorts going forward, where for some things you come to campus and some things are dealt fairly effectively without coming back on campus. So I think that's how this is going to move going forward. And one more point here, Anisha, is that we would not uh, this is not the last of the pandemics. See, any kind of disruption, we are sitting today and talking, and today's Bharat Bandh. So again, you'll have campuses completely empty. If they were filled up, they would have been empty today, because there is a Bharat Bandh going on right now. So these kind of disruptions would keep coming. We had massive flood suddenly in the Europe. We have fires in the Australia. So there are many geopolitical as well as climatic disruptions which are coming our way. And I think education ecosystems understood that they need to create 100% backup to learning and assessment. So I think that's the direction in which all education entities are moving. That's the news fresh off the oven when I'm talking to all the top education decision makers. On the corporate front, again, I think in the beginning, when Ketan, me, and Tanmay used to go and make these pitches to various companies, beyond IT, most companies used to come and ask us, online assessments, we've never done it. We depend on gut. We travel ourselves, we see the candidate face to face, and that's how we've been recruiting for years altogether. And we had to do a lot of market making then. From 2009 to nearly 2014, we used to go and pitch the concept of online assessment. In 2021, as we speak, I think the first port of call for almost all top companies in almost all top industries is that I don't really want to waste my time. Let me engage with a student or a candidate through an online medium. Let us understand each other, the value proposition that I'm providing, and the qualities that the candidate is bringing on the table. And once he's gone through what I stand for and understands and is excited about working with me, and I also get to know what exactly does this candidate hold in him, and where can I fit him into my organization, only then do I want to ask the precious resources of recruitment and senior leaders to spend time on a candidate and then select him. So I think that understanding is fairly well established. The only pivot that we are seeing is, instead of having a test relationship, So instead of me being a top company and I just go to a campus and say, okay, take this test, otherwise I won't take you. Instead of that, now we are working with a lot of companies where we are designing a contest or a hackathon or an ideathon with which we approach a campus way earlier than a placement season, where the students come in as teams, as individuals, they participate in contests, they win some prizes. In the process, they understand the value proposition of the company over a 2 month, 3 month period. Similarly, the scores of the candidate through various contests, even the company gets to know what kind of talent is there on campus. And I think that's kind of a symbiotic bridging of talent and requirement is what Metal is doing today. And I think we've done a fairly good job today across 7,000, across nearly 92 countries. 7,600 companies have partnered with Metal. So we are expanding at an amazing clip outside India as well. So the value proposition is well understood in the corporate world, and I hope that our growth journey continues from here.
So that the way you were describing it, I think there's just no place for backbenchers to hide. They'll be found out wherever they are and assessed no matter what they try. So, the way you're describing it, in because of Mercer now, backing you up, the whole world is your playing field. Now, what kind of growth are you penciling in from here on? Both in the corporate training division and the education division.
So,
If even if things go back to pre-pandemic, from here 5 years from now, what growth are you looking at?
so I don't want to be morbid, and I hope we go go back to the pre-pandemic mode. So we have grown. If you look at our compounded annual growth for the last 4 years, we've been above 40%, and uh, and I'm very confident that we will beat that CAGR in the next 4 years as well. So, the plan that Mercer Metal leadership is working on is to use the talent that India provides, use the base that we've already built over the last 10 years, and take this great innovation to all across the world. So today we are working with all the regions of Mercer, all local countries, and almost every country has a team dedicated to taking metal solutions to their respective markets. So I'm very confident that Mercer Metal in 2025 would be one of the largest assessment companies in the world. And courtesy us, overall Mercer would be consulting a lot around our product as well. So overall, a very, very positive story from here on as well.
Great. Siddharth, now I want to come to you and talk about the entrepreneurship bit. Now, this is a great success story. Like you said, one of the first B2B exits, which is celebrated by the entire industry. So, for those entrepreneurs who are perhaps struggling with their startup, the pandemic may not have been kind to some of those. What's your advice? You're still with the company, you're still growing along with the company. When entrepreneurs look to sell their companies, what's your advice?
Actually, when I speak to a lot of entrepreneurs, especially on weekends. I hear a lot of pitches, and I advise them as well. And if you step away from all of this, if you look at the Indian economy, you can get caught up with these GDP numbers and things like that. But broadly, a country of our size, if 7.2, 7.3 odd billion people are there on Earth, nearly 1.4 billion are in India, and our per capita income hardly does justice. So the consumption in India is fairly low. So if you just leave aside all economic parameters, just one parameter, Indians are going to consume more and more. And India is a vibrant democracy. India has amazing talent and resources. So there is no reason that any story that you pick up, so any industry, uh, any product or any problem that you're solving, uh, has a market for it. And uh, and that's why you'll see many established markets get disrupted, and it has enough space for enough people, frankly. So you look at all the logistics entities which have come. So we had a problem of logistics in the country. People used to say, very very big country, north to south is like 4,000 kilometers, how do we deliver everywhere? And suddenly entrepreneurs have come together. Great stories like Delivery, which have come and they're delivering across India. And within a day today, you'll get whatever you want to get delivered anywhere. in the country, correct? So I think similarly there are enough and more problems that are there in India as well as in the world, and India provides an amazing ecosystem for you to attack them. So the price at which you get tech talent, the price at which you get connectivity, the price at which all other resources are available to you, you will not find a single country today which can give you so much for young entrepreneurs to come together. I think that's why India startup ecosystem is so vibrant today, that we are one of the biggest receivers of VC money coming into any country in the world. So to startup founders, I think don't give up. First of all, you've stepped into a game where perseverance is the biggest differentiator. You have to persist with your idea. You have to believe in that idea, and you should not look at quick wins. So I'm one person who keeps advising founders: don't look at getting or raising seed money or raising Series A, B, C. That's not why you build companies. You build companies to solve problems, and you want to solve problems profitably. And if you are able to find that problem statement and solve it well, you will create enough value for your customers to pay you. And if you're running a good enterprise, you will get enough talent in India to scale it, to solve the same problem globally. And I think Freshdesk, Soho, you have umpteen examples out of India where in the B2B space as well. Even if I leave aside B2C, see
B2C.
B2C, we have a lot of problems. B2C, whether it's milk delivery to mutton delivery, everything's getting solved. Even pharma delivery, everything's getting solved by entrepreneurs, and they have a long gestation cycle to profitability. But in B2B space, and I'll speak to the area which I am good at, B2B space, there is enough value that startups can create. And I think Chennai is one area where a lot of very, very exciting B2B startups have come up, which are profitable from year two, three, and they are solving problems for the globe. And I have no doubt that entrepreneurs out of India would do really, really well.
Right. Siddharth, but towards the end, now is perhaps the best time for startups. Valuations have swelled, and, there's a lot of money sloshing around. So even if you sell one business, you could do more businesses. So, for somebody who's thinking like that, what's your advice?
See, I'm not a cynic, frankly. Even if there is a company which hasn't made money for the last 4 years, but is solving a very relevant customer problem. Many such problems require a very long gestation cycle for you to turn profitable, whether it's a Zomato or a Ola. But they're solving a problem which is very, very well defined, and that needs to be solved for the long term. It is going to have a huge impact. And the beauty of startup ecosystem is that you would have a very young founder at the age of 27, 28, or a 30. He's running a company whose market capitalization is into billions of dollars. Today, if you see, today there is a message on Twitter that HCL has hit 50 billion as a market cap. We have Baiju, which has already hit about 16 billion. So compare the gestation cycle of how much long that HCL took. So I was a kid when HCL used to be a company that we used to look forward to joining, and it's taken my lifetime for them to hit a 50 billion market cap. Whereas there is a Baiju which was not existent in, about 7 to 8 years back as a startup, and today they are already at 16 billion. So that's the story, and frankly, the market's flush with funds. You should experiment, and people who are putting in money also are not fools. They are looking at your talent, they're looking at the problem that you're trying to solve, they're looking at what you've created, and only then putting their money there. So even if you get an exit and you move on to something new, doesn't mean that whatever you built just goes away somewhere. So I think that story would get picked up by another young talent, and then they'll try to take it to the next level. So I'm not a cynic. I look at it positively. Even if, say, Zomato is not making money, but Zomato is a great brand. Today, if you mention Zomato, everybody across India knows what Zomato is. I think that's the beauty of the entrepreneurship, that they have out of nowhere built a huge brand. I think their brand recall would be as good as any other brand that you and me have grown up hearing about. So that's the beauty of entrepreneurship, that some young talent came and within 5 years was able to do what a Unilever would have taken maybe 25, 30 years to do. So I think that way I'm fairly positive. Even if there is exit, even if founders move on to a newer problem, they've just solved a very defined problem. They've made money out of it. They've got investors to believe in them and the value proposition of the company. Hence, they've got an exit, and now they're attacking another problem that needs to be solved. I think that's how we should look at it, rather than
Hmm.
being cynical that, okay, these guys have just exited and now they're up to something else again. I think it's a journey that needs to be celebrated. I think capital was so difficult before 1991 for
Hmm.
anybody to start business. You had to go and stand in front of a bank and beg them that they give you
Hmm.
a loan, and that loan used to come at a very, very stiff interest charge. Whereas now you have enough funds available for all this young talent to go chase their dreams. So I think it's a journey that needs to be celebrated more than anything.
Definitely. And thank you so much for joining us, Siddharth, and putting it so succinctly on the future for entrepreneurs who have dreams in their eyes and how they should go about it. You're not cynical, and you sound very positive. And I think it's a great message for entrepreneurs and would-be entrepreneurs who are looking up to established founders like you, to show them the light, to guide their way. Thank you so much for joining us and sharing with us the dream story of Mercer Metal. Here's wishing you all the best in the future.
Thank you so much for inviting me. It was a pleasure. Yeah. Bye bye. Take care.
Thank you, Siddharth. With that, we wrap up this episode of Green Shoots. We'll be back again in conversation with another founder of a startup. Join us again.